Shut up and sit down.
Hey everybody, it's the Takeover Tuesday podcast, and I'm David Allen. We have another copywriter on the show today, all the way from, where are you from, Brian, right now, actually? You're somewhere in the far east.
Yeah, I'm originally from Australia, but currently living in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, in KL to be exact.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Yes, I do remember that now. Now, Brian, we usually like to start the show by sort of tracing your roots back to how you got started in all this kind of marketing and copywriting stuff, as I think it's very informative to people. We have a lot of newer copywriters, people who want to be copywriters, and newer business owners. So maybe let's jump into your superhero origin story and how the hell did you get started on all this stuff?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. And look, I really appreciate you having me on the show because I have kind of stayed away from this kind of thing. I've just been working with a few select clients lately, but I am starting to work with a few more now. So I really appreciate you having me on the show. And I'd like to say a good evening here at the moment to all the listeners, or whatever time of day it is you guys are listening around the world. And yeah, I'll be happy to take you through where I got started, even though it was quite some time ago. To give you an idea how long ago it was, I can say that having an internet business wasn't even on the radar. I was actually looking to start a mail order business.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a while. It was about 2003. I've sort of been looking for business opportunities for a few years up to then, but I mean, to give you an example, I tried selling Herbalife for a while, and I thought that just putting up the name Herbalife was enough to have people come running to me and buy all that stuff. I got no comment on the products, but there wasn't a lot of great marketing around the place. It was really that that direct one-on-one selling stuff, and I was never really good at that. My place, I think, was always in the printed word, and I'll come back to that. So yeah, when I was in Herbalife, it's funny that it's come onto that subject, because I remember some of the flyers they used to hand out, and it just said Herbalife at the top, and the company logo, and it's all lose weight now, and that sort of fun. That's not so bad, but really the marketing wasn't there at all, and I didn't realize that until I uncovered another world in my search for starting your own business, and it was the world of direct response marketing. It was that long ago I actually found a classified in the newspaper. I called up the toll-free 1-800 number. I got the free paper and ink report, and that was my first exposure to any real copywriting. I didn't know what it was that for what it was, at the time, but I was sold like from the first time I read the thing through. Right. Then I read it through a few times. And this was a product, and I think the copy was probably written also by one of the main marketing guys in Australia, a guy named Mal Emery. He was selling a mail order business pack. So I got that. It was about $700 odd bucks, which was fairly high priced at the time. And I was just working in an ordinary job, so it was no small chunk of change. And that was my first actual experience into the world of direct marketing.
Wow.
That really gave me that base education for headlines and sales letters and emails, and it blew my mind. It really opened my eyes to the fact that marketing was a science. And I never studied marketing in college or school, but I had friends that did, and they didn't know any of this stuff. What it actually took to make a person buy. So that was my college. My college education actually came in a large cardboard box in the form of a bunch of manuals and VHS videos and a couple of cassette tapes.
Luckily.
Yeah. So the internet was around in those days, obviously, and the lowest barrier of entry for me was I already had bought a lot of stuff on eBay, so I thought, I'll sell on eBay. And in that pack, I received the reprint rights to. It's just one of those CDs with like a million ebooks on them. That each one's supposedly worth $50, or so they'd have you believe. So I put together. I took some of those out and I put together various different packages. I tested pricing and I tested different packages. I put together different types of listings, all based on the direct response copywriting rules that I learned in that mail order pack. On the testing, I put together a bunch of CDs and I priced it at $27. It sold pretty well, and I raised it to 37, then 47, 57, and so on. When I got to 77 and 87, I noticed that sales really dropped off. So I went back to 67, and I found that my sweet spot. So that's an interesting experiment. I really discovered like in probably about 2004, maybe 2005. But I digress because while I was writing these eBay listings, they were doing quite well, and I was selling a lot of those packages. I sold a few collectibles around the place. I didn't really appreciate this at the time, but the thing that was making him sell was the direct response copywriting. And it was the headline that I put at the top of the listing. And it was the stories that I wove throughout the copy. And mind you, a lot of the vast majority of it was swiped from that mail order business pack. But I started really to experiment with different stuff, different letters, and different listings. And what I actually found was that selling to B2B clients on eBay, they wanted to branch out into eBay as well, but they didn't know how to write a good listing to save their life. They saw me
Right.
selling a bunch of stuff, and I started to get people saying, "Hey, you seem to be doing well. Can you write my eBay listing?"
Okay.
And so I had started doing a lot of those. And so I ended up with a big stockpile of my own successful listings as well as client ones. And the best one that I ever wrote was for a chocolate franchise back home in Australia.
Nice.
And the guy was selling these chocolate franchises, and he was selling like an information pack, and there was follow-up marketing. But he wanted me to write an eBay listing to sell them. So I put that together, and it was kind of an advertorial style of one, which if you haven't seen those, they look like an article, but they're actually sales copy. He sold those for a while. The first month he did $10,000 in sales for his franchise, and so that was a nice notch in the belt that I had pretty early in my copywriting career. I think he had some issues with the franchise later on, but he did well. He flew me out to the Gold Coast, which is like our Florida, to speak at one of his events. We got along nicely for a while. So that's kind of when I realised that I could actually make more money and have a better lifestyle writing copy, because I was kind of sick of lining up at the post office and sending out packages every single day. Everyone at the post office knew me on a first-name basis, and and I decided that probably wasn't that good a thing. So
Right.
I just wanted to travel the world and work on a computer.
Right.
So that's kind of what I did.
Now, before you continue there, now when you say you wanted to travel the world and work on a computer, were there other people that you then knew at the time or had heard of that were doing such things and that planted that in your mind, or did you just think, boy, if I could just write more of these things, I could take my computer and travel the world?
Yeah. There were a small number.
Okay.
it wasn't a thing back then like it is now. You'd go to I suppose I'm viewing things through the lens of being from Adelaide, which is a small town. You could go to most cafes, didn't have Wi-Fi, and what internet you had was relatively slow. You didn't have a peer in Skype. Well, I don't know if Skype was around. You didn't have the tools, the project management tools,
Yeah.
and the platform. Like I did a lot of work on, and this is copy work. I did a lot of copy work through Rent-A-Coder and later Elance.
Okay.
And I'll come back to that as well if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great place for budding copywriters to start. Those platforms were starting out. Let me see. Rent-A-Coder I actually did quite a bit of work on. While I was working at a full-time job, I did about $2.5K US my first month writing copy on Rent-A-Coder, which is not bad.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
and the jobs were here's my secret: the jobs were stretching the limit for pricing on these sites, because a lot of people out there write a sales page for $100, $50, and I've seen people quoting $15 for a sales page. But believe me, any sales that you make with a $15 sales page are purely coincidental.
I was going to say it's.
Yeah. So that's probably a waste of $15.
Yeah.
But I digress again. Rent-A-Coder, that was a while ago. Was freelancing on there, and I actually left that full-time job and just freelanced on there for a while. And I was thinking about, beaches of Phuket, the
sweet life,
the mountains of Germany, Canadian Rockies, all that stuff. But then in 2008, the global financial crisis hit, and Rent-A-Coder took a big hit from that. So I invented a system, and it was very reliable. But for some reason after that, a lot of the copywriting work, on that site dried up. There was a lot more competition. I suppose a lot more people were out of work, and things were tighter all around. So I went into something else, and I never actually went back to Rent-A-Coder. I think they got bought out by somebody or other.
I don't think they're still around. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because a while after that, I started working on Elance, and I found that a lot better. And for a couple of years, at least, I was making full-time income from home, doing copy jobs on Elance. I was doing a lot of content writing as well, not articles, but ebooks. Because I figured, excuse me, you can get you can do lots of little articles, or you can get like a $500, $1,000. I've gotten up to $10,000 for writing an ebook. So I figure that's lump it all in together. It's a lot better than spreading it out over little jobs like articles. Sites like that are great to get started on. Elance has now been bought out by Upwork.com. So if you try to go to Elance now, we'll just redirect there. I got out of Elance only about 18 months ago. And about 6 to 12 months ago, they started moving over to Upwork. And Upwork has higher fees, and they've raised up the fees again. And I think there's, and this is from a personal point of view, I think there's a lot of other issues with the site. But sites like that, sites like Odesk, are great to get started, because I started just some of my first few jobs were for these eBay clients, and the fees were like by my standards, are embarrassingly low. Like they will go to the grave to me. So don't even ask.
Mum's the word, as they say.
Yeah, but they're a start. Everyone's got to start somewhere. And even when you move to a new platform, like when I moved to Elance, I had no track record, not on the site anyway. But what actually helped me get started was testimonials. So I was building a good portfolio of testimonials, and every client I worked with, I would do whatever it took to get a testimonial out of them. And if the results-based one, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, as part of that testimonial thing, did you have that in your contract, or did you just hound them until they finally gave you one?
No, I've never put it in a contract, but that's one strategy that you might test. Basically,
I've heard of people doing that. I've never done that myself. But
yeah, because I think that would create a sense of obligation. Let's say, and this happens all the time with the freelance copywriters, you probably know. You write a great sales letter, and they don't drive a single click to the page, and then as a copywriter, you failed, so to speak. So they're not going to want to give a testimonial. I'm just imagining that scenario. Also, if people get to know that you include in your contracts that you have clients give a testimonial, it's not the same as if people get to know that, they see a testimonial, I thought, that client was contractually obligated to give that testimonial. So to be honest, I've actually never considered that. The key is to maintain a great relationship with the client. What I do is I do 3 months support for almost all projects, and that means that I'm available by email or Skype to solve any problems. They usually end up being something small or something like that. I've never really actually had someone get back to me and say the content's bombed, but but it's always there, and I have a duty of care because I'm not there to just take some money and move on to the next guy. I'm there to get them a result. I want the clients. Most times they actually, send through, without me asking for a great testimonial. So yeah. But with those freelancing sites, there's 2 keys to it. Firstly, they're a great place to get started. So even if you were to charge, don't be shy to charge under $100 to write some kind of marketing piece. If you're just starting out, you're on 0 clients. 1 is much better than 0. So do that. I started off very low pricing, just small jobs, and built up from there. So, it's like a heart surgeon. You've got to get started because nobody wants to be the first guy that heart surgeon or your brain surgeon has done. Yeah, no one wants to be the guinea pig.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, in regards to when you got started and the low fees that you were charging, as opposed to when you started increasing your fees and moving perhaps off the site or into just better projects and charging what you were worth, what have you noticed about the results and stuff that people have gotten or received? Were they? I mean, you said you really haven't had one that really has gone tank. But
not that I know of.
Yeah, but did you notice that there was any correlation between people paying more for your services and people being happier?
Yeah, I think so, but it's hard to say absolutely because my fees have just grown over time, and client results have also grown over time. So they could be correlated, but I'm not quite sure. Here's the psychology behind that, and it's a great question. But I want to come back to the freelancing site in a minute, because I forgot to mention something. when somebody hires you, they've got skin in the game. They've made that investment. And it also comes down to choosing your clients carefully too, because when they've actually paid you money, that's when it's all like a serious business. It's an actual project, not just some fun muck around thing that they decided to do on a lark. So, excuse me. Now, everyone goes into these things, with a big serious face on. But really, when the stakes get high, like if I get 5 or 10 grand for a copywriting project now, that means we're in a proper business. We're going to run some traffic to it. We have a marketing budget, and that's where it comes down to choosing your clients carefully. Because not everyone has a marketing budget. I mean, I found that that with copywriting clients, some of them their measure of success with achievement is actually getting copy done. They're forgetting the next step, which is getting someone to look at that copy.
Right.
And they think that, and they may have some good organic traffic, but what I tell them is, if I have a business and I want to get some customers along, it's like if I want a loaf of bread. But like if I look around my apartment now, I do not own a loaf of bread. I'm kind of on a low carb diet at the moment. So if I wanted a loaf of bread, I would have to go down to the 7-Eleven down the street and buy one. Simple as that. I don't need to knock on people's doors. I don't need to do stuff that hopefully attracts a loaf of bread into my life. There's a 7-Eleven like 2 minutes away,
Right.
and I can get that loaf of bread whenever I want. So I of course stole that line from Brian at Digital Marketer, but it's he uses rice.
Yeah.
I've actually got rice, but yeah.
That is such a good way of putting it, though, because that is the way people. It is true. That is the way people view it with this,
Yeah. So
market our way to whatever. Yeah. Good point.
So sorry, mate. Just before you go on, I want to come back to those freelance sites because the key I spoke about before was to start small and work your way up. The other secret to those freelance sites was you're not just building an Elance or an Upwork business. You're building a copywriting business. So that means that you would do initial project via the site, but your job then is to build the relationship to the point where they come off-site. And then you don't have to worry about Upwork's outrageous fee schedule or that kind of stuff. So, I mean, once you start talking, you're allowed to swap contact details, and it's your prerogative to work outside the site. So yeah.
It's like Tinder without the fun. No, but seriously, that's a good example because I think people. I mean, I don't know. I've never been on Upwork myself, but or Elance, but I have heard some horror stories about people getting. You just hear a lot of complaints about it. At the same time, you hear people like you done it very successfully and know how to leverage those initial projects into something.
Yeah. I mean, there's good and bad folks on there. I mean, I got a job with for decent money, like considering it's Elance, with the marketing manager of the company of a US marketer whose name you would recognize if I told you. And he started out all right, did a smaller project, and then he gave me some other work to do, some other copy work. for whatever reason, he didn't like that, even though it was exactly in the style of the other work. We must have had a bad day and just decided to be a bit cranky about it.
He's just a prick, basically.
Yeah. You certainly get those. But you just deal with him on a case-by-case basis,
Right.
and as a service provider, I don't mind a bit of back and forth. Like I say, for 3 months, I can work with you to get it right.
Now, do you have, I get questions from time to time about how I handle certain things. And it seems to be, especially when you're in the early stages, but I would say throughout, these kind of stories too, and perhaps you've had this happen to you, is when people want to come back and change things that you've written, and this has a lot to do with vetting clients up front too, I would say. That's been my sort of best way to approach it. But how do you approach it when people do that to you, or how have you approached it?
For me, there's a few things that I need to mention here. Firstly, it's always going to be a lot less than what you're expecting. Excuse me. It's like everything, people anticipate all the worst outcomes, but really stuff happens, but not as much as you think. It's never as bad as you think. So, a lot of people probably just never get around to it, or never end up using your copy. But of those that do come back to me with something, to be honest, I'm glad they did, because if they come back to me with something that needs changing, that just means that there was some misalignment in the visions that we had for that piece. And like I say, I'm not just there to get a paycheck and do a job. If I wanted that, I could get a job tomorrow. I could go back to the old IT career that makes my blood run cold. But see, I have a duty of care. If the client runs my piece and it doesn't work, that means I haven't done my job properly. So I'm there to make their money. That's the long and the short of it. So if they come back to me with something, when they come back at that stage, you've got to decide what the situation is. It's usually one of two things. Either they just personally don't like the way some kind of copy is written, or they have tested it and it hasn't gotten the result they were hoping for. In the first example, where they have a personal problem with what's written, usually that doesn't need to be changed, because I'm able to help them understand that they are not their customer, and therefore, just because they don't like a piece of copy, it doesn't mean that it won't work on their customer. If they haven't tested it, then they usually accept that they're not actually speaking from experience.
Yeah, so you basically implore them to test it first. Basically.
Yeah, because they need to do something. And I've been around long enough now to know that the hot buttons to press in the markets that I work in, and so it's usually not a problem when it comes to knowing exactly what makes them buy. So, if they usually if they come back like that, it's just personal things. Like I heard the example of one marketer who had all these typically ugly direct response flyers made up with headlines and bullet points and all that sort of stuff. Ugly but effective. And apparently he spent thousands of dollars on a different set of flyers, all pretty and beautiful pictures and typical institutional snuff. And those were for his wife to hand out. And he figured that was cheaper than a divorce. So that's why he printed all those up. So she could hand them out. They were for her to hand out at the hairdresser at the school or whatever. So that's That's one option that you can think about too.
Yeah, I think if for people who copywriters do run into this, they do run into the
Yeah,
clients, and I get it. Like you said earlier, when someone gives you the money, they have skin in the game, and then it becomes a serious business thing. It's no longer just like, oh yeah, I'd really like to sell this product I have or whatever, and it's kind of going to be fun. It's going to be, geez, I have real money on the line now, and so there's like this tension slash panic. It's almost redlining from the get go on the client end, unless they're experienced marketer or something that you're working with. And so, you get them. They want to change certain things because, like you said, they don't want to. They don't think this sounds right or whatever. But as carefully pointed out, they're often not the target market, and if they haven't tested it, they really have no grounds. So let's move from your experience on the freelancing on the Upwork and Elance and Rent-A-Coder, the posthumous Rent-A-Coder, and move into sort of what you're into these days, Brian. What are you up to?
like I said, at the moment I've just got a small handful of clients, so I haven't been looking for any copyright clients outside of that. And there are two main industries. Let me tell you, there. One of them is a big marketer in the internet marketing space, and the other one is a company called Mind Valley, which is personal development, help courses, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think people should be familiar with that, listening to this probably, because that's a well-known company with some great products.
And let me see, I wrote for them initial 3 to 4 month period. And I've been back there again lately, working on some of the automated offer funnels, putting that stuff together. They're using Brian Levesque's Ask quiz model as well. So I've been writing a lot of stuff for those Ask funnels as well. But my first really interesting experience with them was funny because they've got a house copywriter there by the name of Charles, and he's really he's a part of the furniture. He's been there for God knows how many years, and he's really good. He writes everything for them just about, and he always gets great results. And there was another American copywriter that they hired for one project, whose name you would certainly know, and they split tested this other copywriter's stuff against the house copywriter's stuff. I think it was a sales page, and the house copywriter won. So to me, that shows you the power of knowing your target market, and that's what copywriting is all about. Yeah, the other copywriter came in; he's very good and everything, but
he doesn't have the time invested, though.
Yeah, he doesn't. He would have had some kind of study period. Probably, I think he has written in the niche before, but this guy's been there so long. He's written so many letters and so many emails. It's not funny. But they were coming up to a huge launch, and this was an English hypnotherapist by the name of Marissa Peer, and this is a huge launch they were doing in December last year. And this proves that you can make money in December, by the way, if you do it right. It's the power of copy, isn't it?
Awesome.
But the house copywriter had to opt out of the project for a little while when his wife had their second child. So I was asked to come and write the post webinar email sequence, and on very, very, very short notice. I was excited about that because they routinely build up tens of thousands of people on the list. They get like thousands of people on their webinars, And so I certainly jumped at that opportunity. As like I was saying before, so many small clients, God love them, but they'll never get a result because their marketing budget is like $25. So I sat down one night and till about 2 or 3 or maybe 4 in the morning, and wrote up this thing. And it's interesting the way I wrote it out. I handed it in. I worked with the CEO of the company on a few tweaks. As I say, I'm always happy to work with clients when when they want change. As long as they're not like outrageous. But we sat down together and worked on a couple of extra bits and pieces. That launch, when it happened, I think that's just after Christmas or before Christmas, at the time was the biggest in their history. And it was a 7-figure launch. They did a ton of money on the day the webinar was broadcast. My email sequence went out. It just went on from there. From the day the first email of that sequence went out to the day of the final email sequence, that's when they actually did the bulk of the money, and it was actually a 7-figure sequence.
Wow, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, that's the power of what the loyalty that my has built up in their customers. That's part of I'll never try and claim that my email sequence magically made $1 million, but just out of worst prospects, it sounds good for me, but credit is where credit's due. I have loyal customers, but having said that, if the emails aren't interesting, they won't get opened. You've got to get that subject line opened, and not only that, you've got to get them to consume the rest of the emails. Because here's how most post-webinar sequences go. Once the webinar finishes, you send through a link to the sales page, which was the offer made, and that email gets a lot of opens, and maybe the email after that might get a lot of opens, a lot of click-throughs. But after that, email 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you'll usually see a sharp decline in open rates and click-through rates, because people know that you're just sending them reminders, to put it mildly. So
buy it,
yeah, and that's cool, yeah. So I started for that email sequence. I actually used something which I don't know if you know him personally, but you would know of him, Andre Chaperon. Yeah, and that's one of the first resources that any budding copywriter out there really must read. It's inexpensive. I think it's a couple $100 or something. It's delivered very, very simply and no bells and whistles. Just an online course, but it's, especially if you're writing email copy, it's probably the most valuable information product that I've ever seen. He actually features a couple of my copywriters in there as well, so which I thought was interesting. But and I'll come back to that as well, because that's key. That's key to what I'm going to talk about later.
And that is part number 1 of our interview with Brian Cassingena. Please tune in next week when I present part 2, and we really dig into his new email marketing tool.